Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're going to let you get settled and we will get started. Knowing that you have lunch right after this, our goal is to get you out of here like hard, like line at 12:20 so that you can make it and find a seat and get settled for all that. If you're like me, lunch is like, I got to get in there and find my spot, get my food. I don't know if it's a buffet or not, but okay, well, let's get started. So we are talking in here about using relationships to help support the social, emotional, behavioral needs of students. My name is Emily Arkfeld. I am a social emotional behavioral learning specialist with Nebraska MTSS, currently serving Region 2, ESUs 2, 3, and OPS. And I will let Kayla introduce. My background before this was mostly school social work.
Good morning. My name is Kayla Peyton, and I just want to make sure that you know that I have some street cred. I am a recovering middle school administrator. Thank you. Straight into heaven when I die. So I taught intervention reading for 9 years, and I was a school instructional facilitator and dean of students at McMillan Magnet Center. And those of you who know Omaha Public Schools, that's North Omaha. And right now I am just supporting schools in ESUs 2, ESU 3, and OPS. So loving what we do with all things systems.
Thank you. Okay, so this QR code on here is for our slide deck. So it is also in Sketch if you want it. Otherwise, you can get it this way if you want to flip through while I talk, but it is there for you guys when you leave here today. We're going to talk about why we want to foster the community in our after-school programming through those social emotional behavioral learning competencies and some research, and then identify some strategies that hopefully are like turnkey for you to take back and put into place if you see a fit in what you are doing. Our norms, be respectful, be responsible, be safe. So take time to quiet the outside noise. Try to be present if you can. We know these days get long and sometimes you have to respond to things. So do what you need to do. Take care of your needs if you need that, and then celebrate and problem solve if that comes up or if, through discussion as needed. So we're going to start with a fall, this or that. Of course, my computer shut off like just in time. So we're going to make you get up and move. People in Zoom, if you want to put yours in the chat, that is totally fine. So we're going to, you guys know this or that? Would you rathers, right? Okay. I will make you can just stand up or sit down. We won't make you go around the chairs and across the room through the tables. So we'll just do a few of them. If you are pumpkin patch, stay seated. If you are an apple orchard, please stand. Okay. Thank you. All right. If you prefer days like this where it's a little bit cooler and kind of rainy, stay seated. If you are the fall weather but warm and sunny, please stand. Okay. Wow, half and half. I'm pretty impressed. All right. Fireplace, seated. Fire pit, stand. Okay, and our last one, because we are in this great state of Nebraska, are you football stay seated, volleyball stand? Very nice. There's a game tonight, right? Husker volleyball game tonight? I thought I heard that. Okay. Okay, very good. All right. So this is like our welcoming inclusion activity. We like to do these for a variety of reasons in the work that we do. For this, it's fun. If you are doing it with colleagues or people you'll be working with on a regular basis, it helps you get to know a little bit about them in a fun way. So like, oh gosh, this person, I never knew that they really like Husker volleyball. So maybe that's something we have in common. So you can do that with students, you can do that with colleagues. So we like to model that for you, but also just a fun way to start all of our meetings and our workshops and our trainings as well. So defining social emotional behavioral learning in Nebraska, within Nebraska MTSS specifically, before I came on, they spent a lot of time talking about, do we want it to be social emotional learning, social emotional behavior, and really they are intertwined, right? You can't have our social emotional skills that we want and not have some behavior things tied in there. And we need those skills to be able to follow behavior expectations. And so really, we just figured it's so intertwined. Let's call it SEBL. And really, we see that as a move across the nation as well. So our definition, the systematic process. We are Nebraska MTSS. We do things in a systematic way. We know that's best for sustainability and better outcomes. So it's a process of fostering social and emotional skills among students and adults, because if our adults are not practicing, modeling, learning, fostering them, our students are not going to do it either. So doing that in order to create our safe and supportive environments with positive behavioral and mental health outcomes for all. And we added mental health probably in the last year, again, because we don't want these things to be separate. This is not our social emotional skills, this is not behavior, and this is not mental health, but we need all of these skills to help promote all of those positive outcomes for our adults and for our students. Because we know research states over more than a decade now, students with those strong skills are more likely to be cooperative members of a team, self-advocate, be resilient, graduate from high school, obtain that college degree, because we know getting to college is one thing, but finishing college is another thing. High school sometimes prepares us for it, not always prepares us for it. And then you get out and you've got like real world things. It's like, gosh, this is hard. So when we have those skills, when we build those skills from kindergarten up, pre-K up, early childhood up, better able to get to that, completing that college degree, obtaining that stable employment, and being caring, concerned community members. Because that's really what we want at the end of the day. We want our students, our humans, our adults to be happy, healthy, successful, functioning humans. They're less likely to display those emotional distress, have conduct problems, receive public assistance, and have contact with law enforcement.
I'm going to take a couple minutes and talk about our organization. So Nebraska MTSS, you may have heard something like PBIS or MTSSB or school improvement or continuous improvement or student support teams. So our organization, we help build, strengthen, and help those structures just work really well. We help refine the processes that happen in schools, and we like to make sure that schools have all of the resources that they need, and just make sure that we're connecting as many people as possible. So a couple of things that I wanted to make sure that we cover is a part of MTSS is definitely, like Emily said, social, emotional, behavioral learning, mental health, behavior systems, and academic systems. We like to make sure that we are focusing on the whole child when we're supporting schools and giving services. And we like to make sure that we involve all stakeholders. So everyone in this room, even though you may not believe it or not, you are a part of the school, and you help the school run, and you help those kids thrive and survive and succeed, right? So the reason we wanted to come here today is when we're supporting the kids in schools, you are a part of that whole child, right? And often, and I'll talk about this later, and often those of you who support our school or kids after school and during school but are not part of the teaching staff, sometimes you know our kids better than we do when we're in the school buildings, okay? And so please believe and please know that you are a part of our teams. And if you do not have, we say we're an integrated system involving all stakeholders. I'll give you a couple of examples of how, if you are not, I'm sorry, I'm a mover around the room. That's just me. When I was a middle school teacher, I had to be, right? Or else something would happen in the back of the room and I nip that stuff in the bud. So if you're not a part of some sort of leadership team or an advisory group, we'll give you some ideas on how to get yourself in there, or at least ask those questions about how we can make sure that we're including the whole child and representing them from when they come to when they leave. We also focus on high quality instructional materials, of course, and a data-based problem solving process. We know in our gut when there are things that we need to do for kids or when kids need interventions, but we don't like to just throw from the hip and think we actually know, when we want to make sure that we're focusing on data and we're using data to make those decisions. And of course, we support each learner by establishing a positive culture and climate within the building. One of our 4 essential elements is communication collaboration. And we support schools and help them implement communication collaboration structures that include families, caregivers. We like to promote student voice, of course, and then that partnership with school and community, who are you wonderful folks in front of us. When we foster and we promote communication, we like to make sure that it's clear, concise, it's two-way, and it's intentional with all staff. One of the things as an administrator that I made sure I did, because as a teacher, I was very frustrated with not knowing things that my administrators were supposed to be telling me, or not knowing what was going on after school. And so I purposefully went and sought out our after-school providers, and they sought me out. Those were intentional partnerships that I created, but I think it's important for all of us to help teachers, educators, everyone that's supporting the students, to understand that you have to go out and seek out those partnerships. They just don't come to you, right? So if you want to know something, it has to be intentional. So here are some levels and examples of teaming within MTSS. Your schools may not call it MTSS. It might be called something different, like continuous improvement. Or so at the district level teams are focusing on strategic planning and continuous improvement. They take care of the money, right? But then when you get down to the school leadership team, this is where you as after-school providers can start to have that that representation. Even if you're not at the school leadership team meetings every week, it's okay. Like, as a school administrator, if you came to me and you asked me, hey, can I sit in on your meeting? Absolutely, because you have so-and-so and we need to talk about so-and-so, because they might be having problems in class. And so school leadership teams might consist of SLTs, which means MTSS, SIP, it could be PBIS. There could be a leadership team with technology, PLC planning, and that's instruction. Collaborative teams might be content teams, grade level teams, professional learning communities, and then of course student support teams. This is where you are the most important. So if there's a team getting together and they're talking about a kiddo that needs social emotional support, mental health support, academic or behavior, you want to make sure that you know when these meetings are and you're attending those, because like I said earlier, you know more about those kids sometimes than their teachers do, than their administrators do. We also focus on a layered continuum of support. Those of you who know anything about MTSS, PBIS, MTSSB, and you'll see it on the next slide, you might think of a triangle, right? In the triangle, you have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. With layered continuum of support, we also include core materials and core practices. So, for example, if I'm in the classroom, I was a reading teacher, my core materials were the reading books and the stories we read, and you know, the intentional things that we did around the skills. But then also, sometimes the kids didn't get it, and so I might have given them group time. And if they still didn't get it, I might have given them one-on-one time. Those are your tiers of support for kiddos. Within MTSS, we like to provide 3 tiers of fluid and consistent support from arrival to departure. That's why you're important in the work of the school. Again, there's that triangle that you might think of when you think MTSS or PBIS. So tier 1 core is the stuff that all students have access to, that all students should have access to. And that does include those behavioral expectations, classroom and common area procedures, and those academic core supports, so access to instructional supports and materials, and a communication among teachers and after-school staff. So that's why you are a part of MTSS. When kids are coming to you after school, we want to make sure they still have access to those core practices and those core expectations. Then when you get into tier 2, those are your interventions. It might be a package, it might be a program, it might be a small group, it might be a social skills group, and then you have your tier 3. And usually it's about 1 to 10% of our kiddos who need that extra special attention. It was my little kiddo who came to see me every day in the office because he got in trouble again. But sometimes we have to have those tier 3 interventions for those kiddos. That might be a behavior plan. It might be a one-on-one or 1-to-3 intervention for academics. All right, so one of the things, like we said, we want to give you are some questions to ask, some things to walk away with. If you want to make sure that you are a part of those teams, a part of those conversations when it comes to kids. So I'll give you about 30 seconds to look at this, but the other thing that we're going to do, if you did not get the QR code earlier, we'll give you that at the end, and we have a ton of resources that you can download and you can use with your kiddos after school, and so make sure that you grab that so you can use those.
Was that enough time for you guys? Okay. And again, you have access to all of these slides. Great. Yep. I was just going to ask for them. Okay, hold on. For those of you on Zoom, the question was if you have access to those teams, but you've been told you can't be on them because of confidentiality reasons, what might be some solutions to that?
So I'm going to speak off Zoom, so I'm not on record for this, but I don't, as a former administrator, I don't understand why because we're contracted.
Wh-
Mhm. Right, right. And I would love to have a conversation with you later. Maybe we can problem solve through that. Yes. So on the record, I will say, continue to have conversations with the administration. Continue to talk about, what are those legal either ramifications or what are the eligibility requirements that you need to meet to be able to meet on those teams, right? Okay. And then also, yes, I will have a conversation with you later. See me after class, miss.
One of the other answers for those on Zoom was to have that parents can ask for a support person to come to the meetings. And so that might be an in also. And the other thought, again, like perfect world. So if it's a school leadership team, I don't want to go. Okay. A school leadership team is still pretty tier 1 core focused. We are talking about what are our incentive programs look like, what's our data showing, and those are not student specific. And so that confidentiality shouldn't necessarily be an issue there because they shouldn't be having those specific student conversations. That is when you get up to those student support teams. And then yes, you can go in just for the 10 minutes on your kid and leave. And so that is unfortunate then so maybe some more education for them about what these teams should look like and the conversations that are being had on them. Okay, any other questions? This is great. Yes. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. How do we get parents involved more when it comes to like mental health and all these like steps that we do? Because like there's sometimes like there's actions and behaviors that the students do that they're learned from parents or families or at home. How do we best like teach parents better ways to like work with behaviors and stuff like that, to kind of reflect that not just in the school, after school, but also at home? Because I mean, parents, when it comes to the working class and like for me, my background, like Hispanic, my parents know nothing about mental health and stuff like that. So how do we build that connection between the parents, the students, the school, and the after school care people too as well? Maybe like how to like send home like social emotional learning stuff to the parents, but then making incentives for that. But like, how do we just build that connection as well with families?
Anyone in the room have an answer for something you're doing? Yeah. Oh, yeah, lots of things. Please stay in line.
So at my school, I'm very transparent with like I send a lot of handouts home and I explain to the parents because I have like calming techniques for my students. So like when you're angry, what do you do? When you're sad, what do you do? And then I send that home and I show parents. I'm like, this is what we've been teaching. Not all parents, you know. It's like, oh, my kid's angry. Okay, there's timeout. Like, yes, that doesn't always work though, especially with like that cultural divide that you had to, you know. But I if the parent is willing, then and I always like handouts and like I show them what we're doing and you know, fingers crossed that they follow through.
I guess for like behavioral things, if like parents themselves see it but don't do anything, it's good enough to make sure you have a connection with the parents in order to like push in like, hey, this is how I'm helping them. Is there any way you can elaborate and feel make sure that the parents are being heard as well as you're making sure you're being heard for them. It's easier to make sure there's a connection to help the children the most. Cause like you said, there is that a lot of burial things of like background culture, how things are back in the day for them. I think it's easy to make sure you're listening as well as you're saying what you need to say.
Yes. Yes, so with the Nebraska Department of Education, some of the work that we're doing around school mental health efforts is doing a webinar on the third Tuesday of every month, and it's geared towards parents and how they can then help their students, their children around mental health issues. And so looking at more of the, and not calling it like mental health, but like awareness of how your child is developing, how their brain operates at different stages of their life. And so on our webpage on school mental health, there's again a little thing that's called In Mind, is what we're calling the webinars. And they're available, they're in the afternoon. So from 6 to 7 p.m. on the third Tuesday of every month. We're operating to have it via Zoom so that again we can have participation, and then they're being recorded. So you're all welcome to access that and again use some of those resources that are available through the department to better support again how we talk about mental health, and again giving families then that opportunity to learn like it's not that your kid is misbehaving because they're wanting to do that, but again how their brain has been developed. We because it will be on Zoom and recorded on YouTube, there is the opportunity then to have it in different languages. And so for some of our families who are Spanish speaking, who wouldn't use that, or again, other languages on YouTube, it'll have that opportunity then for the drag down menu of the different languages that could be then translated for them if they're viewing it after.
I just want to do a side note, and a word of caution, okay? we are living in a very charged political climate, right? Okay. So, yes, we do need to, I think it's important to educate before you send anything home or before you do anything like home communication about mental health and social emotional, make sure you're involving administration. And here's why. From my perspective, I want to be able to support you if I get that phone call, because I'm going to get that phone call, right? So I just want to make sure as an administrator, I know exactly what's going on. Plus, okay, so relationships with SES, yes, absolutely. Please, as a former teacher, maybe reach out to also teachers and educate about what you know about like culture, cultural kind of caveats, things that happen at home that we may not understand. Because I will be the first to admit, like, oh gosh, I didn't know that that happens in a such and such household, right? I only know what I know from my experience, and so what a great opportunity to reach out to teachers and help them understand. The other thing that I would say is a good partnership with the school in making sure that we send out communication about what just general expectations about behavior, about academics, because as a parent of a 10-year-old, I don't even know what's going on in my daughter's school sometimes, and that kind of bothers me. Number one, but number two, I wish there were more communication. Okay, so I think that hopefully I gave you enough perspective from all areas. Okay, cool.
Thank you. And yeah, I would just reiterate or sum up a little bit. Sending with administrator permission and understanding, sending frequent information home about a variety of things so that when you do approach a parent, it's not the first time they've heard it, even if they haven't read it. And those relationships always will be the foundation to having those conversations about what's going on. Okay. All right, we're doing great. This is totally fine. The questions are really like how we learn together. So this is fantastic. Okay, we're gonna move into powerful practices. These are what you're doing if you are doing small groups, how you are setting up your after-school programming with these things in mind. These are those preventative things. They are just helping us build some of those trusting relationships, prompting us to think about what are some of maybe those reasons for behavior that could be happening. And then this is how we teach and reinforce those new SEBL skills. So Kayla's going to go more into depth for each of these things, but thinking about those classroom values or after school values or expectations, if you have those in place, what are your routines and procedures? When kids know, I mean, you guys know this, when kids have that structure and that routine and they know it, they thrive in that. They might push back against it and they're like, no, I don't want to do this, but really that's where they thrive. Those engagement opportunities to respond, encouraging that appropriate behavior. So when you see it, praise it. Active supervision, like Kayla said, middle school, you got to be walking around. I'm like, hey, I'll stand up here and talk. But active supervision, setting up that physical environment for safety, psychological and physical safety, and that continuum of response, which we'll go into. And again, at the heart of all of it is relationships. You cannot have those things in place. You cannot have them be successful if you are not front loading that relationship building with your kiddos. It has you on it.
That is me. My bad. Okay, so this might be part of your school's MTSSB or PBIS kind of core values. If your school is engaged in PBIS or MTSSB, I'm calling them two different things, but they're actually the same thing. Different districts call them different things. They may have 3 to 5 school-wide expectations, and sometimes they may have broken it down into different areas. So in the classroom, on campus, in the community, at Macmillan, we even had ones in the bathroom in the cafeteria because sometimes we had messes, right? Okay, so dismissal. And so, but the thing about this is if you are existing within a school that has school-wide expectations, we want to make sure that they're consistent from school hours till after school hours. So we're doing the same things within the cafeteria, within the classroom, that we're respecting things, we're being responsible all throughout. And then, yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about that. And with the PBIS, classroom expectations and school-wide expectations, of course, there are elements of social emotional skills, about behavioral skills. And again, just like Emily said, this is all preventative. Your best bet in making sure that you do not have kids who either act out or have some sort of social emotional issues, because what we know is that even with me, when my schedule is off, like today, I'm kind of some sort of different because this is not what I'm used to. And so we as humans thrive on schedules. We thrive on routines. And so that's what we're giving them with these expectations.
Here's just some sample engagement strategies, getting them participating in what you're talking about, participating in what you're doing, giving them different opportunities to respond, give their opinion. So we've got the question wheel. It's linked on there if you want to use it. It's nice because you can take out the question, and so then you're not getting the same question every time. Using things like talking chips, and you can use these in a variety of ways. And so maybe each color means a certain thing. They have to answer a certain thing, or you hand, like, they talk and then they put their chip back in there so that they know like their turn is up. And so it helps with that turn taking, not having someone bogart the whole conversation. I don't even know where that I said it and I was like, I don't know if that is an okay thing to say. I probably should look at where that comes from. Anyways, think, pair, share. So taking some time to think on things, make some reflection notes, and then talking to another partner about what that might be. Using things like yes and no. So asking questions, they can respond. Doesn't have to be verbal. They can just hold up their sign. Using whiteboards for a variety of things. So just giving, our kiddos are all different. They're all learn different. They all communicate different. They all engage differently. And so using a variety of ways to help with that. Student check-ins. And I don't know if you have something to add to this one, but there are a ton of words on this slide, but really it's just to show all of the different ways that you can do this. So there's a bunch of different sample questions linked there. You can do that in, if you have a routine on arrival, you can do some of these questions. If you're doing family meetings, closing circles at the end, social emotional wellness checks, or something else you have built into your programming in preparation for or after returning from a break. I really like that one because while we might like breaks as adults, they're not always the best for our kids. Long time Christmas break, summer break. And so building some of those things, like how are you feeling about break coming up? How are you feeling coming back from break? How did those things go? You can do them every Monday or every Friday before the weekend of like, how are you guys going into your weekend, or how was your weekend? So a variety of ways to use those linked in there. We're gonna skip the share out just for time's sake. We like to give you lots of links. So these are all on the slide deck, but this is that helping build that home communication. So doing parent surveys. Tell us a little bit about your kiddo. What do you think their strengths are? What do you want them to learn? What do you think makes them great? Preference for nickname, anything we should know about them, those kinds of things. Also linked as a student interest survey, and then the U for Youth student interest survey, which is specific to after school programs. The piggy bank in the middle is really focusing on like, what are our hot spots? Like, what are our triggers? What are the things that our kids do that like no matter what are going to push our buttons? And so when we can recognize those and we know those ahead of time, it helps us put strategies into place to help disrupt that kind of cycle of responding negatively when we don't necessarily want to. And then those good news notes. So when your kid does something good, especially if you have PBIS or some expectations and they already have something like this built in where they're doing tickets or something for noticing those positive behaviors, letting those parents know, hey, this is going great, or hey, I know that Sam was really struggling with this and like this week has been phenomenal, and let those parents know the great things that are happening with their kids. And making sure that we include our student voice and choice, because our schools, our after school programs, it really are all just built around like best outcomes for our kids, right? Like that's why we do what we do. And so if we aren't getting their voice into that of like, is this working for you? What else would you like to see? Are there things that we are missing? then we're not really doing it in their best interest. So making sure they have a place at the table to talk about this. And so this one is from soundout.org. There's a tip sheet on there, again, after school specific when you think about this. So students can plan programs, activities. They can make sure that they are seen, represented in what's going on in the activities they're engaged in. They can facilitate, teach, and lead some of the after-school programming. Take those kids who are not only your natural-born leaders and put them in that place, but maybe take the ones that aren't natural-born leaders, and how do we help build that up in them too and help them learn those skills? Letting your students assess, give surveys on how this is going, what things, again, what would they like to see? And then maybe you can use them in some leadership teams as well. And so they can really, really focus on like, what can we change? Are there things we can change about the approach, the delivery, and the outcomes of after school programs?
Okay, another powerful practice is encouraging appropriate behavior. I have this common saying, and hopefully you've said it before, that we need to stop shoulding kids. Should. He's 10 years old, so he should know how to come in quietly, right? She's 13. She should know how to throw her trash away. You see what I'm saying? They're kids. Their prefrontal cortexes aren't fully developed yet. They forget. They make mistakes, just like us as adults, right? I do not give myself a stern talking to when I forget to pay my phone bill every month, right? So the reason I bring that up is because since students often forget what the expectations are, we want to do something called pre-correcting and prompting. And so this slide and the next slide, these are not natural things that we as adults do. And so it takes a little bit of practice. This is a powerful PBIS practice. It's a powerful social emotional mental health practice. And so when you talk about pre-correcting and prompting, it could come before we're doing anything such as a transition, or you want the students to go get a certain piece of material from the cupboards or whatever, right? I did this all the time. And you can use things like your voice, verbal, visual, model, gesture, or physical. But I always had problems in the classroom with kids calling out. And so I would say, raise your hand if you want to answer number 1. Right? So you have to model for them. You have to verbally tell them what you want them to do. So that's pre-correcting and prompting. There's a couple of links up there that will give you some video examples on age appropriateness and grade appropriateness when you're doing those types of things. The other thing, Emily brought up something called tickets through PBIS. PBIS and MTSSB. Sometimes we have a token system. At Macmillan, we gave out Lions Loot, okay? And with the Lions Loot, they could buy a cookie at lunch, or they could get some school swag and get a hoodie from the school store, right? It's not the ticket that matters. It is the positive descriptive feedback with the ticket, or when a kiddo has done something well, right? You can tell them that was nice or good job, right? That's easy to say, but we want to tell them why they've done a good job, or why they did something nice, or why they did something very empathetic. So the one on the right seems corny and a little bit loopy, right? But we want to let them know that they're doing something well, so that they understand that it's okay to do it again. It's all right, okay? So thank you, Tommy. You were respectful when you raised your hand and asked good questions at the presentation. I think we're going to get more speakers to come into our school because we're so respectful when they come in. Or, also, we want to support our guest teachers that come in, so our substitute teachers. So always, we want to praise them for that. We want to praise them for not talking during certain something, or, hey, thank you so much for throwing away your trash, because that means that the person after you doesn't have to clean up. Right? Okay. So praising. It takes a lot. What's up, Emily? And like, I mean, make it sound like they're gonna like see through it if you're giving them recording whatever. So if you talk to them like you would normally talk to them, just make it specific about them. Right. Kids can see right through you if you're being corny. Fake. So since it takes a lot of practice to give positive specific feedback, we've given you a ton of links that you can go through to find what kind of your language is, because sometimes stuff will work for me and it won't work for you. And so we just want to make sure that we are giving them positive feedback and encouragement. There's some nonverbal stuff too. I was really big on high fives and pounding it, blowing it up, right? And so just make sure you're finding something that fits you as a person. So like I said, kids know when you're being fake. The other thing I want to talk to you about a powerful practice is active supervision. This was one of the things that really got on me as an administrator, because when we do not have active supervision or no one watching, that's when trouble happens, right? Okay, so when I talk about active supervision, there are some really good, powerful practices that you can do. That's why I'm not really being active supervision right now, but this is just what I usually do when I'm presenting. But you are actively supervising when you're teaching, when you're supervising the cafeteria, or when you're supervising some sort of activity. So you're gonna wanna do a number of things to make sure that you're monitoring what's going on in the classroom or in the cafeteria, wherever you are for your program. But also, this is what I encourage teachers to do. It also means you have the opportunity to build relationships or make a joke with the kiddo or say, hey, I'm so glad you're here. So active supervision is another opportunity to do other things as well. This is one of the things that we've found through NEMTSS is a common area supervisor self-assessment checklist. It's not an assessment on somebody. It's just something to give our supervisors, or this could possibly go to teachers, just so they can self-assess what they're doing when kids are around or when there's large groups of kids. This really helps me, or really helped me to really self-assess when I was an administrator, making sure that I was doing my job. And also as an administrator, or if you are a director, you wanna make sure that you're modeling for your staff what you expect. The same thing that we do for kids. All right, arrangement of physical environment. The physical environment in this space is not conducive, right? There are, I think it's really chunky and clunky. And when it comes to kids, this would be a chaotic environment if kids were in here. Do you agree? Yeah, because they would be running into everybody. They would slap each other upside the head, right? So the reason that we want to consider the physical arrangement of a space is we want to reduce the amount of kind of trouble that kids can get into, because when they're in close proximity to their peers, they're going to want to touch them. Take your hands off of them right now, right? Middle school all the time. And so we also want to make sure that we're respecting each other's spaces, that we are able to do active supervision, and it's for making sure that we're increasing that on-task behavior and perception of safety. What I want you to consider is oftentimes after school programs, you are in somebody else's space, right? Just make sure that we are, as a classroom teacher, I had after school programs come into my room. That was perfectly fine as long as you put stuff back, right? So as after school providers, maybe just take a picture with your phone, right? And then also I really appreciated that after school either director or a staff member coming to talk to me, making sure that they knew that, or I knew that they were going to come into my class that night. But as a former classroom teacher, former administrator, yes, use our spaces, because these are our kids still. Like, these are our kids, not just yours, not just mine. These are our kids. We want them to be feel safe in our environment. Ooh, just another checklist, so an inventory of practices to promote SEBL. These are supporting environments, so designing supporting environments. Just some things to think about when you're organizing spaces, just making sure there's free flowing, or if you're doing some sort of activity, how do you set it up? Where do you set the materials? Just to make sure that there's not chaos, that there's order. Oh, okay, that's still me. So another powerful practice is effective responses, so continuum of response. And this happens when we're getting non-desired behavior. We're talking out, or some kids are messing around in the back of the room, right? So instead of calling out across the room and embarrassing poor little Johnny, and Johnny's going to hate you and then be mean to you, or, you know, whatever he's going to do. We're going to do some other things, right? We're not going to call them out specifically. We are going to do things like praise our other students. Hey guys, thank you for sitting down. Thank you for pushing in your chairs. Thank you for lining up quickly. You can do things like reteaching, but not in front of other kiddos if it's a one-on-one type of situation. We're going to try engagement strategies. So instead of doing paper, pencil, worksheet, everything, we're going to do hands-on activities, right? We're going to try proximity when we have kiddos who are misbehaving. We can attend, wait, and praise, provide choice. Of course, that private redirect, the nonverbal cue. Okay, master that teacher look. I'm sorry, I just gave you that teacher look, right? Or another choice is when then. So when you're sitting quietly or when you've put everything away, then we can go have snack, right? So we're making sure that we're not calling kids out right away. One of my favorite was attend, wait, and praise. I had a lot of kids in the very beginning of class who had a hard time getting started with their welcome work or their bell work, you know, whatever they were supposed to be doing. I would just, it was something that I called under the wave. So I would correct, just real low, so nobody else could, or no, nobody else could hear, then walk away. Okay, so not calling out, right? And then when Johnny or Susie does so, hey, thanks. I really appreciated that sort of thing. So we're just making sure that we're not calling out kids, because when we call out kids directly and in a certain tone, they're going to respond the same way, or they're going to shut down, and that ruins a relationship. Oh my God. Okay. Here's a slide about responding versus reacting. This is a great kind of reminder about it's either like we're responding in low tones and we're being calm about things, because when you respond in a certain way, kids will respond in a certain way, instead of that reacting like freaking out about everything, because they're going to match, right? Some more practices to support young children's positive behaviors. The important part about this slide is there is a classroom intervention bank. So if they're not following suit when you are prompting, pre-correcting, all of those things, so what can we do next? What else? What is this slide? Oh, okay, just a wrap up of that. Okay, here we go.
Okay, luckily these last ones are just all the activities and they're pretty self-explanatory, so we'll move through quickly. But so this is our web. We put this together to show. So we have our competencies: self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision making, social awareness, relationship skills. And those are like, well, what does that even mean? Like, right? These are kind of these overarching constructs. And so we wanted to break that out. And so we have our web here with some of those skills really, and I feel like this really helps show that connection of these are the things that are happening in our programs and in our schools every day. We've been teaching these skills, focusing on these skills, working on these skills for 100 years for our students. Like, this is how we become human beings. So helping make that connection. So self-awareness, again, this is just taken then out a little bit further so that our educators in whatever environment you're in can say like, okay, I know how to help them set goals, or I know some activities around that. So these are all in there for you. These are examples just because I feel like when we hear it, it makes a little bit more sense. Again, these are like corny. This is probably not going to come out of everyone's mouth or in their own head. But like for students, when I don't understand the directions, my body becomes tense and my hands get sweaty. So recognizing like, this is how I'm feeling and this is how my physical body reacts to that. Using things like these emotion wheels to help to really build that emotion literacy instead of just mad, sad, angry, upset. Like, let's really dive down, because when we can figure out what's actually our feeling is, that's how we better put some of our self-management skills into place. Knowing not just the things that make us upset, but what are the things that make us feel really great, sliding into like cool, clean sheets at the end of the night. Like, that's just a great way of like, whatever. So identifying those happiness triggers, there's a worksheet to be able to do that. I think that one's linked in there. Again, this one pager helping to get your kids to reflect on who they are, what are their strengths, interests, what do they prefer, and what are their needs. Self-management, same thing, broken out, an example. And then a variety of ways to build some of these skills into what you're doing. Because we have to be able to, like, if our kids are or ourselves are in like this downward spiral of anxious thoughts and like going to catastrophizing, you can't just like stop that thought. You have to actually like change what you're thinking about. And so doing things like a word search, the 5 grounding things, all of that can help really just like stop the thoughts and then move them forward from there. So a variety of resources in there around that. They can use a chill out pass. They can identify their own kind of like, when I'm here, this is what I can do. When I'm at a 5, this is what I can do. The feelings thermometer gives some examples of that. Like, so how do you feel? What is that like, how are you acting then? What's the behavior tied to that? And what can you do about it? Growth mindset, helping students recognize, like, just because I did something bad one time, like that doesn't mean that that's what it's going to be forever. Like I can do something different next time. And so some activities around that growth mindset, and training the brain for growth to think through situations. How was I thinking, or how was I feeling? What was I thinking? What could I do differently in the future? Okay.
I know we're over time, but we have so many good things to share with you. Okay, so responsible decision making. Big surprise. People are not born with these skills, right? Critical thinking, open-mindedness, sound judgment and reason, problem solving, and identifying solutions. As adults, it's our responsibility to give them guidance so they can do these things. And since we are their people, we are a part of their community, it is up to us and their parents as partners, or caregivers as partners, to help them learn these skills. So the things that we're providing you, sorry. Just some resources to help them make responsible decisions. So pros and cons, problem solving. Of course, we want to make sure that we are helping them set communication boundaries. And so if they don't want to do something and it's very valid to them, that we're validating them, right? And then we have some ideas for groups problem solving, so we can get our kids together so they can problem solve together, because great minds do great things, right? Other things are relationship skills. I was really nervous as a parent. I have a 10-year-old. I was really scared that she wouldn't know how to be a good friend and that I didn't do the right thing. So if, as a parent, I was scared about that, then I was hoping when she went to school, she would also learn those skills. And so yes, as a part of our kids' community, it's up to us to help them understand what it means to be a good friend. We do have some links for the Castle 3 signature practices, and this is building relationships from adults to students and students to students. So take a look at those. There's a link for how to make connections among peers. So what does it look like to be a good friend? And then this is the one thing, if you walk out of here with anything, I am big on restorative practices. Other people like to call it restorative justice. This is about solving conflict. And one of the worst things you can ask a kid after they've done something wrong is, why? They don't know, okay? And that's part of that prefrontal cortex that's not developed. What you can ask them, and what are powerful questions to ask them, is, what happened? What was going on? What was going through your head? And through those questions, you're going to get the why. And sometimes you don't even need to know the why, right? But also leading them into, what do you think you could have done differently? And how can you make this right? One of the things that I never ever did was make my kids apologize, but they ended up doing it anyways. Through that question, what can you do to make it better? Well, miss, I can go apologize. And I would say, don't go say I'm sorry, because anybody can say I'm sorry. Say what you did and say how you can make it better. And usually they did. Also, and it's not what you say and how you say it as an adult. As an adult, watch how you're talking to our kiddos, because they take that right here, okay? They take it to heart. Social awareness, that you?
Okay, I promise we're there. All right, social awareness. So gratitude, lots of research around gratitude and how it helps not only us, but the people who are receiving our gratitude. So there's There's a whole list of resources here for some gratitude, like personal gratitude prompts. This is random acts of kindness. They have a fantastic, they just did this kindness beyond the classroom. So it's in those after school programs. They've got a curriculum out there. They have a calendar, a school-based calendar. So how can you do these things within your after school programming, your community with your students? The tint of your glasses, and this is just about like every person has their own experiences, right? And so you can ask a variety of questions, they answer away, and then nobody's glasses are going to look the same at the end of that. So that is linked in there for you guys also. And then we like to wrap up this reminder that social emotional learning is not one more thing. Our educators after school programs, our 8 to 5, whatever you're in with students, there is a ton of stuff that you have to do, and we understand that. And we're not asking you to do more, just really be intentional about what you are already doing to help our students learn these skills. So we did these things. Our optimistic closure, if you want. So QR code for notes of gratitude, but it's just like a virtual one, so you can send it to somebody. So whether that's a colleague, a family member, a loved one, a student, whoever, and just a quick note of like, hey, thanks for XYZ. So those are up there for you guys. Again, the whole PowerPoint is on Sketch, our contact information. So if you have any additional questions, please reach out. We'd love to chat some more. I think that's it. Yep. Enjoy your lunch and the rest of your day. Thank you all for coming.
Here to end the Zoom for you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.